Welcome viewers. You're watching NewsX and I'm Vaishali Kohli. Now Canada's premier security agency has released a report recognizing the threat posed by Khalistanis in Canada. The CSIS report tabled in Canadian Parliament highlights extremist activities of Canada-based Khalistani elements who continue to promote a violent extremist agenda. The report also recognizes Khalistanis plotting violence against Indians, but says that those indulging in peaceful protests are safe. Let us first take you through the report's details, and then we will discuss with our guests what this really means for the future of India-Canada ties. Let's take a look at what the Canada report says about Khalistanis. Let me show you that, viewers, on the big screen. Now, what Canada report says about the Khalistanis, let's discuss that. Now, past year marked the 40th anniversary of the bombing of Air India 182. That was, of course, the flight. Now, suspects of A1182 bombing were Canada-based Khalistani extremists. So that, of course, is a recognition of that coming in from the report. There were no CBKE-related attacks in Canada in 2025. These are all the details emerging from the report. Now, ongoing involvement in violent activities by Khalistani activists is what the report also says. And then it says that some Khalistanis are well connected to Canadian citizens. These are all the points emerging from the report which has been released, viewers, and Khalistanis leverage Canadian institutions to promote violent extremist agenda. Funds collected from community members and diverted towards violent activities. Some Canadians participate in peaceful campaigning to support the Khalistanis. Non-violent advocacy for creation of Khalistan is not considered extremism. Only a small group of individuals use Canada as a base to promote, fundraise or plan violence in India. So this, viewers, is a balanced report as we're seeing. They are saying that if it is peaceful, then that perhaps is not a problem, which is the point that I'm going to be discussing with my guests. I want to welcome Mr. Surinder Singh Lali. He's a foreign affairs expert. Mr. Sanjay Lazar is a family member of that unfortunate flight there, A1182, the Kanishka bombing victims. Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar is a defense and geopolitical expert, and Mr. Harinder Singh Sikka is an author. I want to begin with you, Mr. Lali. All of these details have emerged, but Mr. Lali, the fact that, even in 2025, in June 2025, there was a similar thing that happened where Canada had put out a stance, and now this has come out. But what about even if it's peaceful? What about that situation as well, which needs a concern? What do you feel about this entire report and the wording of it? Mr. Lali, am I audible to you?
Oh, yes. Is it me, Vaishali? Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Lali, I can hear you.
Thank you, Vaishali. It's such a pleasure and an honor for me to be here and among some of the most distinguished people who are my favorite individuals. Vaishali, I want to start with 3 shout-outs. Number 1 is to NewsX. It allows the likes of me, 87% of Sikhs live in India, in a democracy, and we're less than 2% of the population and 8% in the Indian Army. So what appalls me is what are these so-called goons who are operating under the bogey of free speech using the word referendum for? I mean, even if they were to look up the dictionary, they'll understand that it doesn't qualify for a referendum. So the first shout out is to NewsX, and the second one is to Diljit Dosanjh. Yesterday in a concert in Calgary, he had these 3-4 individuals who had these yellow banners actually thrown out. I was thrilled. He said there is no space for this here. In fact, if I quote him, he says, I went to the Jimmy Fallon show, which is huge in America the night before. And he said, all I spoke was about Punjab, Punjab where he was born, you know, the sword arm state of India. And number three is a shout out to Sanjay Lazar. Sanjay, I am so happy. I'm so honored to be on the same panel where you are compiling an anthology on the, and I quote, the global Khalistan threat. Quote close. Sanjay, it is so beautiful that you're actually doing a lot of us who are turban Sikhs and Punjabis, which of course includes General Skocher also. You are calling them out and taking the time out and compiling, you know, how a lot of us feel. So you are living through us, or we are living through you, Sanjay. So a big thank you for that. And number two, you are constantly working on the closure for the 329 lives, 84 children. You know, we still need a closure to that. And I'm going to share something personal. You know, I live in house number 4 in Delhi and in house number 9. You know, my father had gone to somebody's prayer meeting, and this was a Sharma family. You know, they were our neighbors. And they, in fact, lost their entire family in that flight. So I still remember, I was a little kid when my father came home. God bless his soul, he's not with us anymore. And he says, I felt guilty wearing a turban. Not that anybody said anything, but we all knew what these individuals who wear a turban and have nothing to do with the values of Sikhism. You know, they are simply there for a cause, which is all of these nefarious activities. So Vishali, a big thank you to you and to all the panelists here that we are calling this a spade a spade. And number two, is Canada in a quagmire? I mean, Canada could use Pakistan as a free case study. I mean, now why are they oscillating between, you know, with this report itself? I mean, first of all, I'm so happy that they've understood that these Johnnies, these fringe, these rogues are also a threat to Canadian security, which is so good. And number two is, how can they justify, I think they've seen Dhurinder too, that's why the second part of the report is, that I don't know if they have any evidence on us being involved, be that as it may, but Vishali, well begin is half done. I'm happy that they realize that these little fringe rogues have costed them, Canadian country, the citizens to English-speaking fellow democracies, such a large diaspora, a huge cost, and especially the way America is literally breathing down Canada's throat, belittling them, wanting to annex them, and now they're all trying to look for other, you know, alliances to make. So I hope, you know, Mark Carney is the new elder in the House, and I hope he's going to do a better balancing act and call these Johnnies out, because they have been straining and prevailing on a relationship between two English-speaking large democracies. Thank you.
Mr. Lali, let me just tell you that as a fellow Punjabi, I echo your sentiment, because there are some people who really degrade this religion which only talks about humanitarianism, it's peaceful, and believes in helping each other people out. So that's what I want to tell you, Mr. Lali, and with that I want to go across to Mr. Sanjay Lazar. Mr. Lazar, we have spoken earlier on NewsX. I thanked you that day, and I want to thank you again for sharing your personal story with us. Mr. Lazar is, of course, the family member of the AI-182 Kanishka bombing victims. Mr. Lazar, if I remember correctly, you had lost your entire family, your sibling, your parents. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I want to begin by asking you, decades after the tragedy of Air India Flight 182, how do you view this acknowledgement by the Canadian authorities?
Thank you for having me on your show, Vaishali, and I echo Laliji's views. NewsX is one of the rare channels in India that has continued this fight against the Khalistani, terrorists, as well as this movement and the bombers of Air India 182 Kanishka. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. Yes, I was orphaned at the age of 17. I lost my entire family back then. And that didn't keep me down. I've been fighting for justice for 40 years. I was a petitioner in the John Major inquiry. I still go every year to Ireland and across Canada, and I speak against Khalistani terrorism, against all forms of terrorism. Laliji is right; he let out a cat out of the bag. I am working on the anthology of, the global Khalistani threat across the world and how it demeans and belittles the great religion of Sikhism. It's against Sikhi, I feel, and it belittles the contribution of the great Sikh people and Punjabi people to India and the Punjabi diaspora around the world. So I think that has to be removed. The second point I want to make here, I've read the report page to page, cover to cover, and you have to understand that there is a bit of friction between not Canada and India anymore, between CSIS and their PMO. While CSIS and the earlier PM got along just fine, the current CSIS director doesn't get along so well with Mark Carney. So you will see a bit of jarring statements apart from the truth about the Khalistanis. You'll find 5 or 7 remarks about India being involved in espionage, which I was very disturbed or unhappy with. I'm happy with the acknowledgement about the CBKE, Khalistani extremists being involved in the Air India bombing. But I also am happy that the CSIS has finally recognized that whilst secession is not a crime in Canada, it is a crime in India. And therefore, the Indian government tries to protect its own borders and boundaries and its states. That's the other aspect. The third thing is I believe that, Mark Carney and our PM have moved on along the way. This is, don't forget, a 2025 report. I believe by the by things will change. I believe even the Niger aspect has now moved out of the window. If you look at the report from afar, I think it hits the Khalistani extremists far more about their fundraising, about their illegal activities, about their threats to Canadian citizens within Canada, and more than it points a finger at India for transnational repression, allegedly, which I don't believe we do, but they say we do. So I look at it from that point of view, and I still, as a family member, we have our own organization, and we still look for closure. We look for justice. At some point, there has to be some justice. We all hope for a deathbed confession by one of them so that we can put this to bed. But, who knows whether it will come. But it is my job, I feel, as an individual. I won't call myself a victim. I'm a survivor, and I'd like to point out to the world how dastardly and devilish these Khalistani extremists were, and how they were promoted and prompted and funded in those days by the ISI and their Pakistani goons. I was last year in Washington giving lectures on terrorism at the National Press Club, and you'd be surprised there were Khalistanis waving flags down there below. The Operation Sindoor group also was there, and they were brought there by the Pakistanis. So it just shows you this is a method to kill India by 1,000 cuts. But I'm sure we are strong. Our Sikh, forces in the armed forces or in civil government, in our ministries, in our cabinets, are so strong, and they are the pride of India, that they will never let this happen. So yes, it's a good step in the right direction, but lots more to be done in my view. Thank you, Vaishali.
Absolutely, Mr. Lazar, and I completely agree with you, because the question is that there are these words that are being put out, but what is really the action? We want to see the action on the ground, and these things should stop. I want to go to Major General Rajan Kochar, Dr. Rajan Kochar, for his comments on this. Dr. Rajan Kochar, of course, this is not the first time that Canada is putting out a statement. Previously, we do know that the relationship between Canada and India was strained because of this. And now, of course, this is a step in the positive direction. But is it finally time that we need to see more action on the ground? What do you have to say about that?
Thank you, Vaishali. See, this report, I'm not impressed at all. I mean, it may sound a balanced one in which Khalistan issue has been recognized finally, officially, which the Canadian government had already done it earlier also, this present one. So I don't see this as a major escalation in a move to recognize Khalistan as a major terrorist organization, because what I see missing in this report is the nexus with the Pakistani ISI. And most of these uh, Khalistani organizations like Six for Justice, Babbar Khalsa International, all that, they are still thriving in Canada. What about their seizure of their accounts? From where are they getting their funding? Is the Canadian government investigating that? How many people are part of this organization? What are the antecedents? How many times have they been to Pakistan? How many times have been to India and things like this? So there I uh, would like to recommend that in case you recognize as a matter of a security report you have now on paper, what is the follow-up action required to be taken by the Canadian government? And I feel that you can divide this into two parts, short-term and long-term. Short-term is, yes, take action against all these organizations, seize their accounts, blacklist them, finish their funding, and make them teethless. Second is, will you carry out some kind of preventive arrests, and based on whatever investigation you have done, do we see some kind of arrest taking place in Canada to say that X number of people are involved in this terrorist organization, and they need to be put behind the bars. The next is, there was a mention about the Canadian laws, and we have seen that succession laws and all these laws are pretty lax. So, is there a movement, or is there a thought, I would say, on the part of the Canadian government to also address those issues where it acts as a deterrence? Because see, today you take out a report and you is to put India's name. The India's intelligence agencies are also I'm involved in the internal affairs of a state, which I think is quite damaging to put in a report, because we have always maintained that we have not interfered in any kind of activities in Canada. Of course, there was this Niger case, and a Pannu case also happened subsequently. But no definite involvement of the Indians. We have actually maintained that. Our Minister of External Affairs has maintained that. And India has taken a very, very consistent stand on that. So I you appreciate the sentiments of Sanjay here, because he's doing a wonderful job. He's trying to highlight this, but and I would request Sanjay also that whenever his report is ready, it should be put up to the Canadian government also, because the finding of his report and his entire hard work, his investigative actions, and whatever research he's been able to do, and whatever material he's been able to gather, it should be made use of in case the Canadians are well-meaning and they want to address the issue. But in case they want to put it up,
Mr. Kochar, I'll just have to interrupt you. I just want to go across also to Mr. Harinder Singh Sikka. He's an author, and viewers, let me remind you, Mr. Harinder Singh Sikka has written a very important, a very famous book called Calling Sehmat. There's also a film that was made on it, and we've all seen it. We've loved it, of course. Mr. Sikka, about the current situation, if I ask you, what are your comments on it? Are you satisfied with this report?
First of all, thanks for having me here. Listening to the three gentlemen over there is no less a treat. Thank you very much, Sanjay, for doing what you're doing. My deep, heartfelt gratitude. When you use the word Khalistan, it hurts us. Khalis means pure, and they are anything but pure. Second thing, we must understand that similar blunders were made by Europe when they let in jihadis. And they're suffering, and now they're making out decisions and trying to throw them out. Not going to happen. Similar mistake was made by UK. They've jumped in, pumped in, and now they're sulking. So to call Khalistani as part of Sikhs I've repeatedly said Sikhs are not Khalistanis and Khalistanis are not Sikhs. Don't insult us, please, I request you. I'm a military officer, like General Kochar. We have seen and defended India in whichever maximum manner. Now come to Canada and this so-called traitors, terrorists, terror groups. They are part of the terror groups. This must be emphasized on their mindset. That let's not talk Khalistanis. They're part of the ISI gang, and there is no big deal for them to understand where this money comes from. There's a big drug deal which was taking place. I have about 700 employees in Canada, and indirect included, it will be counting to over 2,000. One of the famous companies over there we run, and we get a lot of inside data as to which way the wind is blowing. Yes, the new PM has come. He has said something which is interesting, and there is a thaw. But nothing much has happened on that further. Those people who are living there will continue to live there because in the name of democracy over there and secularism in India, we are meant to suffer. We will continue to suffer till such time we call spade a spade. The jihadis can never be peaceful. I'm talking of the so-called Sikhs. They are not Sikhs, and they can never be peaceful. They are only building their sleeper cells. I was very much in touch with very senior diplomat here in Canada, the Canadian diplomat. She was kind of running the show here. Now she is retired and gone back. And I would discuss with her where we are and how we are falling back on Trudeau and what is happening and then what is likely to happen. And the responses were very clear in their mind that it will take ages for them to clear the deck. So we have a problem which is almost permanent. You need a leader who will take a stick or a soldier. Why we, for example, civilians will never understand. General Kochar will of course do. Why do we fire at an enemy? If we don't, they will.
You know, Mr. Sikka, I hate to interrupt you, but we're very short on time. But circling back to Mr. Lally, before I go, Mr. Lally, it's important that you mention what Diljit Dosanjh did, because it's important, as Mr. Sikka is also saying, that Khalistanis are not Sikhs. And that is the thought, viewers, that I want to leave you with. This is, of course, a very important discussion. I wish we could take this conversation forward, but we're short on time, and with